Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. We're very excited that you're here. Welcome to how to create two-way integrations for RENXT with best-in-class software platforms like Civic Champs with Sky API. With me today is Stu Hawkins and Geng Wang, and I will let them intro themselves and say where they're from because it's really entertaining. We have a global team here today. Go ahead, guys.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much, Nicole, for having us here today. I'm going to share my screen here so you all can see it as well. And then, yeah, we'll get started here. And so, as you said, today's session is around how to create two-way integrations with RENXT with best-in-class software platforms like Civic Champs with Sky API. And so, yeah, I'll actually hand this over to Stu real quick just to say hi and introduce himself.
Thank you, Geng. Yes, my name is Stu. With my wife, we run RENXT. We're a software company here in Sydney, Australia, where it is not hot and it is not the afternoon. So we're super excited to be here. And what RENXT does is we build extensions for NXT that help our customers work easier and smarter. And I think there's a slide coming up with a picture of a fantastic engine. If we go to the next slide, there we go. That is the most like tech. So let me tell you a little bit ahead because it will make the whole thing make more sense around. So basically, what we do, we build apps. We've got our core apps. It is a fantastic car, isn't it? I agree. I'm sure that's in the US somewhere. So what we do. We've got a whole bunch of apps and we've been doing this since 2017. And what we realized was, well, in order to do that, we built all this like technology around NXT, which we call the NXT integration stack, because all of our core apps run through this NXT integration stack. It includes all the stuff that you need to like get data out, get data in, and all that kind of stuff. And we realized that there are other partners like Geng, who maybe didn't want to build an NXT integration stack because they had their own thing going on. They've got their own fantastic apps. So we've been over the years worked with a few selected organizations that we love to work with, like Civic Champs, and basically their app goes through our integration. There you go. It goes through the integration stack, which is is great for us because it gets used by more people. It's great for them because there's a slide about that later on, so I'll let Geng tell you about that. So yeah, some of our favorites, Civic Champs, definitely one of our favorites. They're fantastic to work with. So if you ever want to work with them, we strongly recommend that. DocuSign was one of our favorite apps to build. Not to talk about it there, but it's just really, really cool is what I love about it. And we've done a few integrations with Blackbaud themselves. And I'm going to hand back to Geng.
Cool. Thanks, Stu. And so, yeah, my name is Geng. It's not super phonetic, so it's pronounced like gung-ho, if that's easier to remember. And so I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Civic Champs, and we create the most intuitive and impactful volunteer management platform for nonprofits. And yeah, to get together with RENXT, we've created a really fantastic integration with RENXT. And so for folks that maybe are less familiar with us, right? So, the pain point that we solve is really around, consolidating all of the various tools that volunteer managers use on a day-to-day basis, like, whether that's MailChimp, Sign Up Genius, paper sign-in sheets, right? All these things that oftentimes folks need to do manually. We put it all into one platform so that we can make everything from onboarding to scheduling to recruiting and engaging and retaining your volunteers super easy. And of course, with reporting and then the integration makes that even easier. Right? And so, as an example, right, we have a mobile app that you can see here that gives you an idea of how we might do check-ins. We also collect feedback as well from folks, right? And then, of course, put all this data on dashboards, right? So that's just a little bit about us. And then more relevant for today is, we were part of the Blackbaud Social Good Startup Program. I think we were 2 cohorts back, and that's actually how we got connected with Stu and the RedArc crew, is because we were making this build versus buy decision, and whether we wanted to build our own integration or perhaps partner with somebody like RedArc, and RedArc came highly recommended, and so that's why we, one of the reasons we chose them. In addition, we know that Stu and his team have a lot of technical expertise in the area. We did a lot of conversations with them upfront, and it felt that they really knew their stuff, so to speak. And very important, and since we're a startup, is that they're, if you do decide to ever work with RedArc, they're very, very reasonably priced for the quality of the work that they do. And so, that's appear to be true up front, and that has definitely proven to be true now as well. And so together, our goal is to help serve the 6,000 or so RENXT customers that currently use the RE7 volunteer module. Right? And so to give you a sense a little bit of what that might look like, this is the integration that we've built for folks, or at least parts of it. And so there's actually 2 parts. So there's an integration where we're sending data from Civic Champs to RENXT. And that's kind of part of what you're looking at today, is, sort of Civic Champs data sitting within Razor's Edge. And then there's a second part that's around, taking the list of volunteers and constituent data from RENXT and bringing it over to Civic Champs, which is kind of, the meat of today's talk. So, but real quickly, I thought it might be interesting for folks to at least see, the integration from us to RENXT. And so you can see some of the tiles that we made. This is the constituent tile that we've created, right? And you can see that it's really quite beautiful, the work that Stu and his team has done, right? So every constituent tile now has this ability to see when was the last time someone was active, the estimated impact of the volunteering that someone has done, what roles they enjoy doing, right? So if you want to have a sense of sitting down for a coffee chat with, with a donor, having a conversation, you say, oh yeah, it looks like you really enjoy dog walking, or you really enjoy XYZ activity with us, right? So providing that level of context for folks. And then, and last but not least, right, we try to make it really easy to set up the integration. And so you can see here, right, these are some of the fields that we're able to sync over from Civic Champs to RENXT. But with that, I wanted to dig into the core of today's topic, which is really around that handover process from Razor's Edge over to us when people first get set up, right? And so in terms of the handover process, right, or pattern that we decided, so we thought about a couple different options, and so we had the option to do a direct API connection, right, and so and we ultimately opted not to do that, right, and so basically the thought was that API it was going to take a lot more time and cost. And in terms of collecting data from Razor's Edge to Civic Champs, it's really going to be a one-time thing for the most part, right? Most customers, when they sign up for Civic Champs, they're just looking to, sort of dump all their volunteer data into our system on the sort of front end, and then they're going to be sort of using us to manage their volunteers. And so it's more important for us to have that sort of real-time sync back to Razor's Edge. And then there's a lot of other benefits, right? In terms of if instead of doing a true API, if we had more of a what we call this handover process, you can leverage the knowledge split between our team and RedArc's, and so we could sort of do the parts that we know best, right? And then have this little handover process here. So we'll sort of use a little diagram to highlight what that looks like. And I'll actually have Stu talk more about this part of it.
Thanks, Geng. So this diagram kind of says, and so what we wanted to do. So you've got like the two like layers of what's going on here. So the top layer is what the user sees, and behind that is this, at least in this diagram, fairly complicated process that's going on. And I thought, this is it's a developer, a developer audience. You guys build stuff like this all the time. So what we thought would be interesting was to go into why we built it in a seemingly complicated way. Did a talk yesterday on how to simplify things, and this is like seemingly we've gone the other way and we made like something simple at the top, complicated underneath. But there were very, very good reasons, and we thought that you guys would be interested in why we did that. So basically what it was, there was like the integration was kind of almost there. And then this kind of came up towards the end of the project. So it was like there were customers who wanted to get, they want to like seed their Civic Champs with data that came out of Razor's Edge. So it's like a one-off thing that happened right in the beginning. It was a small-ish percentage of what was happening with the integration. So we started looking at it, and it didn't really kind of, and this is like a problem that comes up for developers the whole time. It's like, you could do this and it would be fantastic, and it would use like all of the latest methods for doing things, but it was just kind of, it wasn't at the right scale for the problem we're trying to solve. So we're trying to, what we were looking to do was find a way of doing it like very quickly, very effectively, but still give the user the experience that the whole thing is completely seamless. So going through the top, the actual process is the user goes into it's a Blackbaud add-in inside of Razor's Edge, and basically they click a user list, they click a button that says send. They will just receive an email saying, that's great, that's going to be processed. And then as far as they're concerned, all those records just appear inside of Civic Champs. And they get an email saying this done. So for them, it's very, very simple. Select a list, press send. They're there in Civic Champs. They get notification. Very, very simple process. But behind the scenes, two things are happening. And what we decided to do was like split the work, because it was much quicker for us to instead of us figuring out how to like map and do all those things with Civic Champs API. What we did was we built our side of the integration, then Civic Champs built their side, and then what you can see there in the middle, that's an S3 bucket, because we realized that whilst you can do really clever things, in actual fact it was pretty much a file. Like you're just sending a bunch of constituents over one side. So the simplest way to do that, and sometimes the simplest way is the best way, not the most high-tech way. So there's this little S3 bucket that's where the exchange happens. So what happens is we go in. When the user presses a button, the REDARC app does some processing. It generates a file, like literally a file. The user has no idea all of this is going on behind the scenes. That file gets put to an S3 bucket, and notification goes to Civic Champs. I think in the beginning it was like semi-manual. It was like a classic kind of startup hack, where it looks completely automated to the user, but behind the scenes there's people like, people are getting emails and going in, because this only happens, this is like a kind of once a week process. So people are getting emails, going in and manually doing stuff. You can see now it's actually been automated on the Civic Champs side. So anyway, this S3 comes in, they get a notification, and then it's processed in Lambda, and then that ends up in Civic Champs, and then the Civic Champs side is what sends the notification to the user. So basically, we thought what would be interesting is the fact that you don't always have to build something with the latest API technology. What you can do is give the users a fantastic, seamless digital API experience, but behind the scenes, you can make it work. And this made it really, really fast. It made it really, really effective. And, it's just great. And I love telling the story, to be honest, because it's just one of those things where, you use the pattern that works best for, the problem you're trying to solve. That was a long answer, but I think that's what we really want to focus on, because you can take something away from this that, you can split, you can do all sorts of things, but make sure the user has a fantastic experience. Right, I'm going to hand back to Geng.
Yeah, no, I'll just sort of add to that a little bit. You made this comment that sort of the startup-y process where we use the same S3 bucket essentially for our bulk uploads, right? And so we're able to actually leverage the sort of same infrastructure that we had already built for sort of manual bulk uploads. And I think actually the first couple we did, to Stu's point, was very much a manual process where they would dump the file into S3 instead of actually using Lambda to process. We would just take the file and push it through sort of our more manual upload tool, and then we added on sort of the Lambda processing to use that as the trigger to automate it. So and yeah, it was a much easier in many ways process for us. And then one of the things that I thought was also interesting for this process is that because Civic Champs, we have a volunteer login system. And so one of the challenges we have around this in particular integration is around emails and mobile phones, which we use as usernames, right? And so that's not always true. That's not true on the Blackbaud side, where an email is not necessarily a unique identifier for a user. And so what we've done, just in case folks are interested, right, is we have internal systems that help with this usually, but because the import is on a sort of the onboarding step, basically if there's any sort of unverified contacts, we just sort of accept all of those, and then if there's any conflicting records, we sort of store all of that on a separate table, and then sort of review that for later, right? And sort of make sure that we're able to process everyone properly. So that in case you have a system like ours, right, that could be a similar challenge that you might face. And then real quickly here. And so this is kind of what the final product looks like. And so, yeah, in RENXT, you can go into the Civic Champs integration, which is an add-in, and you can select a constituent list right here. It's, starts this, the sync is currently processing, right? It's sort of, as Stu says, it'll send the user an email that says this is processing, and then when it's complete, we send them an email that says this process has been done. In many ways, Stu and his team on from the RedArc side really does most of the heavy lifting, right? Because once you have this tabular data file, it's relatively simple to process, right? But from there, what we do is we that system, that information goes into Civic Champs. And then a couple things you can do as an example is you can, invite people, right? If they have unverified data, as we noted earlier, right? You can send a verification link through Civic Champs to get them, accounts really easily. And then, this is what that would look like. They would get an email that says, hey, verify your account. They can create their account. This is the sort of account creation process, right? So, and then this is, at this point, we also have the RENXT ID that we're storing for the user ID. And so all of this is now synced up once somebody has created this account. So this prevents duplicates from happening. And so if somebody even updates their email on the Civic Champ side or updates their phone number, right, we're now we can be smart enough to push that information back to RE, but also know that it's the same constituent. Okay. And so a couple folks that use this integration today, these are some of the nonprofits that have taken advantage of the integration. And then, here's a bunch of other folks that generically use Civic Champs across the board, right? So with that, yeah, let me pause here for questions. Here, I'll kind of go back to this this page here, but yeah, any questions from folks? I heard a bunch of pings. Oh, Stu, did you want to chime in on? I think you were maybe reading some of the questions here.
There, yes. The one question I did see was from Paul, and he was asking what S3 is. And I was wondering when I was going along, should I mention what S3 is? And clearly I made the wrong decision because I didn't mention what S3 is. So S3 is part of Amazon Web Services. So and I'm going to assume that Geng's architecture is all built on Amazon Web Services, which is, as you know, a collection of microservices that do lots of things. And S3 is like it's a place where you can store things. So typically files. It's like the old world meets the new world. So it's like FTP, but in the new world of like microservices. So basically you put files in it. People use it for all sorts of things. Typically we would use it for when we're like moving a file from somewhere else. You can think of it as like modern FTP, but that really doesn't do it any service at all. So we put a file in. I don't even know what the file was. I'm assuming it was JSON file, maybe a CSV file.
I think it's a plain text CSV file.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it's a storage, but it's a microservice. So you access it via APIs and you access it programmatically rather than FTP.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. We use S3 to also store most sort of documents or images, as an example. Often they go into like an S3 bucket, so to speak, that you can then refer to later. Yeah, no, great question. And yeah, any other questions from folks here? In many ways, I feel like the on our end, the integrations, is or the stack or the tech we're using is pretty vanilla, so not like particularly, groundbreaking. But like I said, it's really the work that RedArc has done to create the files in a state that's easy to digest, so to speak.
There's a question here from Lucy. What kind of data is moved from one platform to another? So in the process that is on the screen right now, in this process of moving data to Civic Champs, it's constituents. Well, constituents are coming out of Razor's Edge, which become volunteers, I assume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, so and I think more specifically, I think we had one of the images here that shows some of the specifics here. But basically, it's name, email, phone number, and their Razor's Edge, RENXT, constituent ID. I think that's probably about it, right? In terms of what we'll bring over, it's kind of their biographical information that we're sort of collecting from Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, you're welcome.
I think we're gonna hand back to Nichols.
Oh, and Lucy has one more question. Are there any plans to increase the type of data, i.e. volunteer roles? I guess we might have to dig into the specifics there in terms of roles. We do, I know some people might mean roles to be like groups of volunteers, or it could be like the specific task that they're doing. Is that what you're asking about, Lucy? Task. Yep. Yeah. So Stu and I, we did talk about this. This is the upgrade that we've talked about before, Stu, where we would sync over the sort of task level data, if you remember, Stu. And so that's something that we've definitely discussed before in the past. We don't have it today, So the data that we're doing is a little, the biographical information from Civic Champs to RENXT. We are syncing over, as you saw, right, in the tile, right, some, sort of activity level data, and also within the database, I think 3 points of, how many volunteer hours. So year-to-date totals, lifetime totals, and then 12 months running total number of hours are the sort of the 3 data points. And then to your point, though, we could start sharing also the sort of activity level information. I think we would remind me, where will we sync that, Stu, in RE again?
So one of the things we love about working with Civic Champs is that they're very innovative. So like one of the first discussions we had, it was like, oh, well, you do integrations like this. And then Geng was like, well, can't we just do this? So so there's one other example of organizations where they're just like, no, we just want to do this, which is fantastic, because that's exactly how we love to work. And we're like, so typically in an integration, you would bring in constituents and you would bring in, the relevant transactional activity related to whatever it is. So in email marketing, you'd bring in emails that have been sent. In this case, you would bring like the times they've volunteered. But Geng was like, well, yeah, but that's not really what we need. That's not really what is going to help people the most. What they really just want is summaries of what's happened, like how many hours they've worked and things like that. So we ended up not doing that at all. We didn't bring in any transactional data. It just populates these 3 custom fields with totals, which is actually great engagement. So it's bringing in like how many hours that person. There's 3 fields. I forget the 3 fields, but one of them is how many hours that person's worked, which is classic engagement scoring information. So that goes in a custom field, and then on the constituents, then you could use that to to find out how engaged that. You would typically want to use that as part of like a wider engagement score, so that you could find out how engaged that person was. So yes, it does it in a minute. What we did discuss was bringing in the transactions, but I personally love Geng's original, like, no, this just because everyone else does it like that. We don't need to do it like that. This is going to actually, in a much more like simple way, give people what they actually need.
Right. Well, and I remember at the time, the RE team was also doing an update to some of their data models. Which was one of the other reasons we, there is an update to, I think either the events model or maybe the transactions a table or something like that. And so, but we do have, Stu and his team did put together a proposal around, if we wanted to add transactions, we do have sort of a path to do that, but we'd have to put in a little bit more work to put that out there.
Hopefully that answered your question, Lucy. You got the long answer in the end.
That's right. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little jet lagged right now. I've been flying quite a bit. I'm actually I was in China, but I'm actually back in the US again. I flew back on Monday, and then but I'm in Minneapolis today, so I flew to Minneapolis this morning. So
I was so impressed. With our global group.
That's right. I brought him back to the US.
I'm still impressed. Any other questions for the guys? This has been great.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for attending, and real quickly, if you do want to stay connected with us, we do have the ability to book time with myself or with Stu right here using one of these 2 links.
Super. And I'm also going to go ahead and launch the survey as well. It's just 4 questions. go ahead and launch that if you guys don't mind just taking the survey real quick. It helps everyone.
Right. You have to rate us very highly just for our good looks, or at least for Stu's good looks.
And then I put in the chat as well. But up next is the DJ trivia contest. I hear that there's prizes, and it's supposed to be a lot of fun. So if you can make it, please do. It'll be a lot of fun.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it. Yes, it's always a pleasure to share the stage here with Stu. But yeah, thanks, everyone, for coming and watching our presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming.
Y'all have a great day.